Good morning, everybody. Hey, it's 9 o'clock my time, Pacific Daylight Time, on April 7th, 2017. And yes, I know I'm a little sniffly. I woke up, I guess there was some overcast, rain, thunder showers, snow. So I'm a little under the weather, but not much. So hopefully it'll go away by some point during this broadcast. So, anyways, we're having a topic today. I haven't really found a name for my show yet. Right now, it's just Sunday with Steve. I don't know. I haven't really come up with a decent name. So it's Sunday mornings, 9 o'clock, my time. I think it's a decent time to have hangouts, even though that a few people have messaged me saying that they wish it could have been later. Maybe I might change it to 11. We'll have kind of a thing on that later of what's the most optimal time. But anyways, this topic, male circumcision, mutilation, or medically justified, is actually something that got brought up about a week ago with the Atheist Impaler, Seth, and myself. And none of us were actually, in the position to really kind of comment medically whether it's something that should be continued. We all have our opinions on it, and I definitely want everybody's opinion. But I was hoping we get people with a little bit more knowledge on the topic, a little bit more medical experience. Mithridates was supposed to join us. We'll see if he can. He actually performs circumcision, so you can't ask for a better expert than that. But what the Atheist Impaler was saying was that he thought that it was barbaric because it was just a holdover from customs from a 2,000-year-old book. And of course, he does have a point. But I'm wondering, is there much more to it than that? Is there medical benefits? I've read on, the Mayo Clinic, some of the benefits of it. And I want to keep this kind of on a more upper level kind of discussion. I mean, obviously, I know some people are going to have jokes, but I want to keep it so I can have this as not 18 and up, not age restricted. So there won't be any kind of pictures or anything, sorry. But we can discuss it. We just kind of have any graphic images and then keep it kind of on the professional level. Because it is a topic that should be discussed because some people do have very strong feelings about it, as Atheist Impaler did. However, he was actually willing to put out another video on his channel after we got done discussing it, saying that, you know what, he was exposed to things he never would expose to before. He really had to think about his position, and he was being very open to changing his position, which I think is amazing because anybody that can change his position in the great debate community, that's how you have to go about critical thinking. If you can never change your position, then you're never going to learn anything. So anyways, this is going to be an open hangout. The link is actually on the Great Debate Communities. It's unsnipeable, so anybody can come in. I do have to approve them, however. But right now, we do have a handful of people in here. I expect to get real full real quickly, hopefully. But we got Tony, we got Pseudo, we got Hell in a Handbasket, we got Crisper, we got Brenda. So what I want to do is I want to start from the beginning, basically getting a view of the landscape, the people that kind of are pro or against it, and see where we're at, and see if anybody changes their position throughout the actual hangout. I can tell you right now that I'm right now probably toward the pro side. I actually glad I'm circumcised. I think it has medical benefits. I don't see it as a barbaric custom or mutilation by any stretch of imagination. So I don't have a problem with it. So where I stand with it is that I am fine with male circumcision. So I'm going to go down the line here, and then we kind of get more deeper into it. So Tony, where do you stand on this?
Oh,
Say again?
yeah, I've never really had a problem with it. I've never been on a negative side of it. It's always done me well. So
Okay.
and yeah, I can see back in the day how it was a thing. I mean, you're traveling people that could be saying get in there. Hygiene was different back then.
Okay, so you're pro. You're pro. Okay, yeah. Pseudo?
I don't understand why everyone's making a big issue about it. If this was a big issue, this would have stopped a long time ago.
All right, so you're pro?
Neutral to pro.
Okay. Helena? Since you're the only lady in the room. I should have made you go first, but that's okay.
Made me go first. I lean towards anti, but I don't have an extreme view about it.
You lean toward anti, but not okay. So you could be wavered on it.
Well, probably the thing is for me, when I was pregnant, I looked into it a little bit because if it was going to be a boy, there was going to have to be a decision made. And this is the thing, is that I think the moms are the ones that make the decision if it's not a religious issue. And the main concern I was worried about is sort of what is the cultural trend right now? How can I keep my son, if it's a son, from being, made fun of and things like that? But I think there is a point to be made about if you wait till they're older so they can decide for their own, then you haven't made a decision for somebody.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You can't. You don't make Helena do anything. So I should have asked her to go first. People are asking in live feed the link. Oh yes, Luke. I couldn't find you to add you directly. Luke Vance. You was somebody from one of the other communities that wanted to come join us. The link to join, if you're, just see here. If you can't get to the Great Debate community, can somebody manually send it to him? Would somebody be so kind to do so? Because I can't put it in the live feed because it doesn't show up properly. What I can do, I'm gonna put in the, try putting in the live feed. But what you got to do is take the XXX and make it into a com. So I think that works. So I'm putting the link in the live feed. You have to take it, copy it, and take that XXX and change it to COM, and you can join us. So moving on here, CRISPR.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly close to where Helena is. I tend to think it's sort of a little weird that it's sort of just done as a standard practice, but I don't think it really does any real harm either. So it's just I guess to me it's just sort of an oddity.
Okay, so would you put you in the pro, neutral to pro?
No, I'd say probably
neutral to not pro.
Yeah, but I mean,
okay.
it's just kind of. My point is just that it just seems kind of weird, right? Like, but I mean, it's not. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal either, right? It's just so.
All right, fair enough. Brenda. Brenda's abstaining. She's taking the fifth. We'll get back to.
Oh,
Brenda.
I'm sorry. My mic was muted. I wasn't aware. It's a cultural practice that doesn't do any significant harm, and we should accept it for that reason.
Okay, so you put you in the pro.
It's just a practice that some people engage in. I don't see any real objection to it.
Okay.
How sure are we that it doesn't do any harm? That's
well,
the thing
that's going to be what we want to talk about. There's going to be people that are going to argue with both sides. Even in the live feed, people are saying that there is harm to it. Some people are saying there's no harm to it. What kind of harms are we looking at? Are we looking at psychological harms? Are we looking at physical harms? Are we looking at what do they consider to be harm as opposed to any of the medical benefits? Which again, we can go through some of the things on the Mayo Clinic if we need to, but hopefully we get a medical professional in here that can actually give us it directly. So,
well, do surgical procedures cause harm?
Well, any medical procedure clearly, obviously can possibly have complications, right? But I mean, I think when it comes to circumcision, it's gotten to the point where it's pretty minimal at best, right? But
yeah, every surgical procedure causes harm. Every single one.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
no, you cut the skin. That's harm.
That's not harm. I mean,
yeah, it is.
No,
it's harm.
Okay. Can I just say something? Can we separate out the difference between the harm necessary to achieve the goal,
right? I mean,
and the unintended harm that might arise as a complication to the attempt to achieve the goal?
Yeah, right? I mean, if you say it's harmful relative to the skin, I mean that's different from the harm relative to the patient, right? I mean, but if it saves their life, then you can't say it's a harmful procedure. That makes no sense relative to the patient's
Sure
health.
It does. Sure it does. It makes perfect sense.
I don't see how.
Every surgical procedure causes harm to the body. Every single one.
Yeah, I think
that's the whole point.
I think that doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, I mean, you're using the term not in a way that I would personally use it. Anybody kind of agree with that, or they think that any kind of
you're violating the integrity of the body.
So again, should you do it or shouldn't you do it? That's the thing. Brenda, are you saying that you should do it or you shouldn't do it?
She's saying that
should do what?
She's pro.
My moral position is that we shouldn't cause harm to other people.
So
never.
So you should never do operations on people?
Absolutely not.
Oh, I see.
So people.
Yeah, I'm against that.
All operations are done with the consent of the person involved, and also done,
Not necessarily.
you know,
There's been many times people
with
are
the
unable to give consent. Yeah,
Steve,
yeah,
we've heard
and
this breaks down.
there's an eventual overall good that is achieved.
right. So how
So the
could there be?
question is
How
there
could
an
there be?
eventual overall good for this?
Right.
This is the thing that's bizarre to me. It's so needless. That's why I'm anti. Right?
You
It's
mean
just
the
pointless.
circumcision's
Why are we
needless?
doing that? Yeah.
Oh, they do it for cultural reasons.
Well, I mean, there's
To be
also,
part of a group,
but there's also medical
like to
reasons
be
as
part of.
well. I mean, we could, like I said, if we can't get Mithridates in
We-
here or somebody else, we can go through some of the medical benefits.
Actually, so something was just raised there that it's done for cultural reasons, but I'm sure you would agree that it's possible that things might be done for cultural reasons that you would still oppose, depending on what those things
Absolutely.
might be. Right. So I don't think that
Yes.
just saying cultural reasons is a sufficient.
Yeah, that'd be a
Um,
genetic fallacy to say that they're
statement. You need to-
harmful just because of that.
No.
that.
So it's cultural reasons, and it
It's
doesn't
a
do any
cultural
harm.
reason, and it causes harm, but it doesn't cause significant, long-lasting harm,
Yeah,
and
think
it has beneficial aspects.
I disagree. Well, hang on. I disagree with your
Can I
use
just-
of the word harm, but
All right, Steve, everyone's, I don't mean to bring up a pun here, but everyone's cutting off heavy. But we'll get the puns out of the way quickly.
Well,
yeah, let's get
I
all the
saw-
puns of the way. Okay, Heavy, by the way, what was your? How do you weigh in on this?
I think it should be left up to the parents.
Okay.
I really do.
So you think it's neither a good thing or a bad thing to remove it?
It has its pros and cons. If you leave it, if you don't cut it, and you and keep good hygiene down there, okay, you're fine. But there's one thing about it I want to bring up, especially an older man. Like if okay, here we go. If they haven't stretched the foreskin enough, it could be real tight. And if it accidentally, if it can't pull back past the head, and all of a sudden it pops back, it can be real tight. I mean, they have to be taken to the hospital, and the foreskin has to be surgically cut to keep the pressure off the head. I mean, this is a real thing. That when it won't open, the foreskin is so tight when it pops past the head. That's a very severe problem.
Well, let me ask you, Heavy. Look,
It's not a real
again, I know
problem.
you're not a like a medical professional or anything, but let me ask you. I mean, from a biological standpoint, is this something that you think, like, given over time, that maybe the foreskin would actually go away and not even be something that's selected for? Is that possible? I mean, does it serve a function? I mean, is it just a useless piece of skin? People have said that it actually adds to nerves and to sexual pleasure. I haven't seen anybody produce a shred of evidence for that yet, but that doesn't mean it's not out there. So if somebody has something like that, I'd like to see it. But so far, I think that's just been assertions. But I mean,
It's for me, it's a thing that that is aching, like the little pinky on your toe. When you know that at one point in your life, well, in the next generation, it will go off. I mean, you don't use it as much as you should, but it's not a reason that you should remove your pinky toe. Right now, there is a use of it, like evolution will remove it, but if you remove it before the evolution does for you, then you have trouble.
well, I mean,
You are in
do we
trouble.
have trouble? I mean,
Sorry?
again, are we gonna do the consequentialism thing that the overall ends justify doing it?
I think we need to go there. I think we need to start to go where it is a bad thing, why it should be a good thing to do it. Because saying it is a bad thing would be, who was that? It was Brenda said, it's doing harm. I mean, you're doing something to your body that you're not needed to do. You have to prove that it is needed. Then it should be, it could be, how do you say that?
Justified?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you have
needed.
to prove that's needed. I think you only really have to demonstrate that it has more medical benefits to do so than not doing so. I think that's really my justification. That's my standard. You
Yeah, and
don't
it
have-
all centers around hygiene.
Sorry. Yeah. So how would we proceed to prove that medically
well,
there is something good going from that? Because I don't think there is. I
well,
mean,
from the Mayo
I haven't
Clinic,
read anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
I put the link from the Mayo Clinic into the live feed and to the interior here, so you guys can check it out. This is I think the only thing I have to go by right now, because Mithridates is maybe on call right now. So let me put this in the live feed for you guys. Okay, so that's from the Mayo Clinic. So basically, they break it down to like 5 things: easier hygiene, decreased risk of UTIs, urinary tract infections, decreased risk of sexually transmitted diseases, prevention of penile problems, and decreased risk of penile cancer. That's what they break it
Yeah,
down to.
but these are things that might. You see that they might have various health benefits. It's because it's not proven that there is a health benefit.
Well, you can't say the word
Up
proven.
to now.
Science doesn't prove anything. We just demonstrate. But it does say here that
Yeah, like,
circumcision does not affect fertility, nor is circumcision generally thought to enhance or detract from sexual pleasure for men or their partners.
yeah, basically saying it doesn't change anything.
Right.
See, so you have to. I think we need to underline what it changed, like easier hygiene, for example, the first one I see here, and how is it really a health benefit? Is it a real one? I mean, could we find out that people who are circumcised have better, easier hygiene than the other ones? I mean,
Yeah.
is there a way to prove
Yeah,
that?
of course there is. That would be fairly easy to do, wouldn't it?
Well, no. I mean,
No,
I don't think that
you
it's
can't
harder
compare
for me.
populations of circumcised versus uncircumcised. You can't do that.
I can't. Well, I think we can, but proving that it is easier for those who are circumcised. How would you do that?
How easier for what?
Those who are circumcised. To
Easier.
say
Easy. What's easier?
the hygiene.
The hygiene.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and that's
did
well,
you
we got to look
have
from the
any-
medical side. Yes, we all understand that it started off as a cultural thing. Everybody gets that, but that's a
Yeah.
genetic fallacy to just say, oh, because it started off as a cultural thing, it doesn't have any real world benefits, right? So that we kind of have to look past. People need to get over this.
Well-
Oh, well, this was a practice by Jews thousands of years ago. That really makes no difference to today's standard at all.
Yeah, back then it was a sign to show that they were different, or it's kind of like a mark maybe to separate them from the other people around them, showing that they were God's chosen. Because this
Point of order. The ancient Egyptians also used to do it, and they did it at I don't know what at age, but it was a passage from being a child to being a man.
Okay.
So
Still
it wasn't
cultural.
just Jews who were doing it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. General, you want to weigh on this real quick because you just dropped in? What's your point of view on it,
It's general.
General?
Yeah.
Or
He's
all right, we'll
sitting
get back to
in.
him. Oh wait, is he saying something?
He's saying something.
All right, he'll get on mic in a few here. People in the live feed, some people are saying that what I read off were not facts. Actually, they are facts because I mean I take these as facts unless I have any indication that they're wrong. I mean these are actually declarative statements. The overall risk of urinary tract infections in males are low, but these infections are more common in uncircumcised males. That's a statement of fact, I would take it as, unless it's being disputed. This is from the Mayo Clinic. It also says.
So that's the second point. Yeah,
It
that's
also
the
says-
second point.
Hang on, it also says,
Yeah.
although cancer of the penis is rare, it is less common in circumcised males or circumcised men. So I mean, these are considered to be facts again, unless I have reason to not take them as facts.
So that's I think if we are looking into the research they based this claim on, I think we'll find that it comes from the fact that there is more uncircumcised people, therefore more chance for them to have this disease. You know what I mean? Like
So you're
they
saying
don't account to
you're saying
for the error, margin error, or something like that.
so you're saying the Mayo
Yeah.
Clinic can't do a proper study.
Yeah, and these are facts. I mean, I don't know
No,
why some people in the live feed are saying they're not facts. Those are facts. I'm not saying it's a benefit to have circumcision. I'm saying that what I'm relating to give pause to whether circumcision is benefit or not, should be continued or not. These things that I read off from the Mayo Clinic, I accept as facts until somebody can demonstrate that they're not, because that's from a reputable source. So when I say that circumcised males have a higher chance of penile cancer or have a higher chance of UTIs, that's not opinion. That's a fact from a reputable source.
Oh, you mean
And-
uncircumcised?
Uncircumcised, yeah.
And presumably their statements are based on published studies
Sure,
in
sure.
reputable journals.
Yeah,
That's
I'm,
what
I'm, I'm,
one
I'm
would
assuming
presume.
that. I'm assuming that as a presupposition. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I would too. I would too.
So I wouldn't. That's why. That's what happened. I mean, it's the first time I see this website. I'm sorry about
Yeah,
that. But from the sources I've read, I mean the studies I've read, they don't tell me that. Well, they always tell me that the how do you say that échantillon? Is someone here speak French? The sample, yeah, that's a word in English. The sample chosen wasn't representative or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, a representative sample size.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, I have looked at people like look at other sources. I've looked at a lot of different sources. This is just the most concise one I found. These points are many different places. You can go to many different reputable medical places and find these same exact things. So you can pick anything you want, but people are saying that that there's other sources that say otherwise. Okay, that's fine. Then bring them in. Where are they? That's the whole point of having this debate or discussion, is that if people are going to say that there's reputable medical sources that say circumcision is harmful in the long run, or at least more harmful than the benefits, that's what I want to see. So people are saying studies different at the Mayo. Okay, where are they? That's my whole point. That's a point that Atheist Paler and some other people I had with them. If they're going to say that there's other things, so where are they?
Oh, General typed some stuff in the side. He's getting his mic ready. Said there is some evidence that circumcision is associated with lower risk of prostate cancer. In 2015, meta-analysis found a reduced risk of prostate cancer associated with circumcision in black men. A 2016 meta-analysis found that men with prostate cancer were less likely to be circumcised.
So
He could probably add more to that
so
when
they
he
have a
gets
higher degree. See, I like Mark provided something in here which is not obviously. See, the problem I have with these other sources, if this is not a medical source, I'm not even going to bother with it because I have to go through each one of these things. I'm only going to be taking things from medical sources, not from circumcision.org. It might be true, but I'm not going to go through each individual of these things from this particular source because they haven't been vetted to me, and so I'm not going to waste my time if they're not vetted. They might be true, they might not be. If we can continue with them. But the problem I usually find is that some of these things, when you go to a source that's not a vetted source, or at least not a medical source, they kind of take things and run with them or kind of read into things. So, like for example, this one says circumcision decreases sexual pleasure. Well, Mayo Clinic says that there's no research for that. I'm going to take that over obviously biased source like circumcision.org. So if you, I want to be looking for medical type sources, if that's okay.
from past experience, being circumcised does not hurt your pleasure.
Well, like I said, I've actually known people that were circumcised later in life, and
Yeah.
so that's how they were determined. I mean, it would obviously be subjective, but if you had a lot of people that were circumcised later in life, which does happen, they would be the people you go to see, if they've noticed any difference. Now, I haven't heard any difference, right? So.
Well, and it's one other thing. I don't know if y'all had addressed it already, but if you look at other mammals, male mammals, you may not call it a foreskin, but it is protected, covered, whatever. You know, it's just natural. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
that
they
we're born.
also have a bacula too. We don't. Some of them.
Well, what's that?
A penis
Or should
bone.
I ask?
A
My
penis
my
bone.
near my nearsightedness is natural, therefore I should not get LASIK surgery.
Yeah, but Brenda, you've also stated that cutting into the body causes harm. So.
Yeah, which is just.
Yeah,
weird.
it does.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I don't think
That's not
anybody
a
agrees.
problem.
I don't think anybody agrees with you on that one. So that's not even worth really going.
They're
into.
wrong. They're objectively, factually wrong.
Yeah, well.
It obviously does cause harm. It obviously does.
You can also wear glasses.
Again, harm is relative to something. You could say harm is damages the skin, sure, but a doctor has the Hippocratic oath that says, I shall do no harm. So I mean, if under Brenner's standard of morality and ethics and medical procedures, every time a surgeon cut into skin, every time a surgeon cut into skin, they'd be doing harm. Well, that's ridiculous.
That's not my position.
Well, it is. You just literally
it's
said.
not. No,
if you
no,
cut
it's
into
not.
skin,
No,
that's
I haven't.
harmful.
I haven't been allowed, to expound on that. Obviously, you can do harm in order to promote, a better alternative.
No, that again, a doctor's not allowed to do harm of any kind. So you're not making any sense.
That's right. Yeah, I am making sense.
No, you're not, Brenda.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
We don't understand you, Brenda. That's it.
I don't think you do. I don't think you
I'm
do.
going to move on a little bit because I do think Brenda's trolling a little bit. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But that's
No,
okay.
I'm not trolling.
Well,
I'm not trolling.
Okay, well,
I have logical categories that I think in.
Well,
in terms of
people are saying that you're trolling, and I'm kind of going to agree with them because that's kind of asinine, and I think it's off topic, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, anyways, Les Nagy says, I think the cutting of foreskin off is barbaric practice, Steve. It began as a cultural procedure, and I'm sure the origin of this practice of urinary tract infections were not a consideration. Yes, we've already went through that. That's a genetic fallacy. Because it was a cultural thing, fine, but that has nothing to do whatsoever in modern days if it has more health benefits than any kind of the detrimental or side effects. I mean, obviously, you always have a complication, possibility of infection, but do the good outweigh the bad? I guess you could say.
Yeah. Steve, your name,
just a mic check.
And I don't think he's had a chance to weigh in about it yet.
Who?
Your name?
We don't
Yep,
care what
I'm
Bob
here.
has to think. No, I'm just kidding.
Nobody cares about
Hunky
it.
Chopper.
Yeah, Bob, why don't you go first? Then, General, yes, your mic works. So I'll get back to you in a second, General. Bob,
Can I check my mic?
yes,
My
I just
answer?
said it works. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, Bob, what say you, man? I think I already know your position, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm against it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
Okay.
I found a couple papers on Google Scholar talking about the sensitivity and everything on it, and the males lose it. It cuts down some of the mucous membrane for diseases and stuff. I lost that one now, but
Other studies contradict that.
yeah, but there's studies on both sides. Yeah, of course.
See, I
But
don't see a lot of people.
But there
running
are
around going,
studies
I lost
against-
sensitivity when I got circumcised. I don't see a lot of that being touted out as a reason not to have circumcision.
Okay. If it was such a good thing, why isn't it more popular?
It actually is one of the most common procedures.
It is one of the most, but I mean, like, compared to not doing it, you know what I mean? Like, not having it. If it was such a good thing for your health, if the benefits that you reap from the risk of doing the surgery, why isn't there is more of it? I mean,
Well, general cultural practices in the United States, it's been a long-standing cultural practice in the U.S. to circumcise males at birth. And that's been for a very long time because the United States saw itself as a sort of a Jewish Christian nation, and they continued some of the practices of Jews, and in other countries, that's not a perception. So it's just a continuing practice that is in some nations and not in others.
So you're saying that it's because of the religion and not because of the benefit?
We can't be looking at this from a religious point of view. I mean, we all admit there was a cultural reason for it, but we are moved past that. I mean, we do it for.
That's the heart of my argument.
Well, but that makes no difference.
Yeah,
I mean, we either do it for medical benefits or we don't. That should have. I mean,
No, that's not true.
That
We should
Well,
respect.
hang on. Let me
respect.
let me clarify, please. I understand there's cultural things, but that's not the topic of the discussion, though. If somebody wants to argue that we're doing it solely for religious reasons, and that's what should we be arguing about? Should we have a debate or discussion? Should we do these things for cultural practice? I think that's a little bit different than the
I'm
actual
not
topic.
talking about religion.
You know what's ironic in this discussion? St. Paul actually agrees with Steve.
St. Paul
I'm
is
not
smart.
kidding.
Hey, can
He actually agrees with Steve in the New Testament. Anyway,
I just read off a little quote from John Harvey Kellogg? A remedy which is referring to masturbation.
Oh, yeah,
a remedy
this
which
a
is
genetic
almost
fallacy
always
too, probably, isn't it?
What?
This is going to be a genetic fallacy too.
If you understand that what I'm about to say is arguing against the practice of
Right.
circumcision, yes.
Go ahead.
But if I'm arguing against Brenda's point that it was done in continuation of the Judeo-Christian traditions,
Go ahead.
then no.
All right.
A remedy which is almost always successful in small boys is circumcision, especially when there is any degree of phimosis. The operation should be performed by a surgeon without administering an anesthetic, as the brief pain attending the operation will have a salutary effect upon the mind, especially if it be connected with the idea of punishment, as it may well be in some cases. The soreness which continues for several weeks interrupts the practice, again referring to masturbation, and if it had not previously become too firmly fixed, it may be forgotten and not resumed. So I don't think it's entirely fair to say that the reason for the practice becoming popular in this country was entirely due to some idea of shared Judeo-Christian heritage. That's not intended to be an argument against the practice, mind you. I'm just that was one of the reasons it became popular. So
Well, that you're citing just a single source. I mean, why should I take his opinion as being significant?
no, I'm sorry. This is
You
he's
cited
one of
a
the guys
single-
promoting
you
it.
Kellogg,
Yeah.
Kellogg, the actual guy from Kellogg's cereal, was one of the guys that promoted it. But his reasoning was because it was supposed to supposedly reduce reduce masturbation. Correct me if I'm wrong, right, CRISPR?
And what year was that?
That's right. Let's see if I get the actual year here.
It'd be the 20th century.
Kellogg was kind of popular the late 1800s, early
Yeah.
1900s.
Yeah, it had to be really turn of the century, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
He just made the cornflake. I think it was somebody else that put sugar on it, wasn't it?
Was
So,
it-
so
It was his brother who actually sold them and made them popular. He wanted to give them away for free.
So was circumcision widely practiced in the U.S. before Kellogg?
It wasn't that common.
Was it just basically
And I'm not
in
saying
the Jews
I'm not
at that time?
and I should also stress the point that I'm not saying that he was entirely responsible. I'm saying that he was part of a trend at that time.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No, I have to agree with you on that. I just don't want. I want to make sure people realize that reasoning doesn't really
Right.
matter to today's why we do it
Right,
today.
but again, I'm not citing that
Right, I
in
got you.
order to say that. I'm just like let's be clear on why it became popular in this
Right,
country.
right.
It's not.
I agree.
I think it was popular before.
General, did you want to weigh in? And by the way, you weren't here earlier, so were you on the pro side or the con side, and then your reasons, General?
Yeah. So I'm not. I would, at the end of the day, I would call it mutilation. I wouldn't say it's medically justified, so to speak, even though I will admit that there's medical benefits in certain contexts. So if I were to have a son, I myself, I'm not circumcised. If I were to have a child, I would not circumcise my child. However, I do, or have had friends back when I was in high school. In the locker room, guys had some peculiar thing on the head of his penis, and he's just asking all of us, going, "Hey, what do you think this is?" And sure enough, about a week later, he had to be circumcised because of a certain hygiene in order for that to heal. So I am opposed to religious or cultural uses of circumcision. It should be religiously justified. If it's for certain hygiene purposes or medical purposes, I don't mind it. I am definitely opposed to female
Yeah, that's a
circumcision.
whole different ballgame. Yeah, we're not going to go
Yeah.
in the route of a female.
Yeah.
That is. See, here's the thing, and I've used the word mutilation for a reason, because this was what we had been talking about with the Angel Impaler. However, I in no way think it's mutilation, because definitionally speaking, mutilation is to cause serious bodily harm, and cutting away a little piece of skin in no way to me meets the criteria
Yeah,
of
that's understandable.
mutilation, right? But I did use this word for a specific reason.
would agree.
So no, I would not call it mutilation. I think that's more hyperbolic, but I wanted to use that word because that was the word being bantered around during our discussion. So do you think you could be kind of change your mind that it's maybe not mutilation? Because I don't find anywhere the word uses for mutilation to fit this particular thing.
I guess I'll have to nuance that word then, because I definitely agree with what you just said.
Because you're a smart man.
Quick. I will say this though. As far as the history of it goes, interestingly, the Egyptians practiced what's called half circumcision. So the foreskin would be hanging halfway, and when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, they had to be circumcised a second time, because all the Jews were half circumcised in the Egyptian way, and hence the Jews practiced a full circumcision, circumcised twice. Again, that's a form of tattooing in the ancient cultural context. They would have a bodily tattoo or like a sign. That's an Egyptian man versus that's an Israelite. But today, I don't see any huge benefits for it anyway. And that's what St. Paul says in the New Testament.
That's what we're here to discuss. And by the way, I am seeing a bunch of people trolling. I mean, I think Mark Anoia, I think you're trolling out there, because I think your questions are just way off base. This is not troll. This is actually a serious topic. I mean, there's no way you can make a comment something like, "Oh, what does Steve feel about female genital mutilation?" Obviously, that is, removing something very serious, because there's a lot of nerve endings there. That does been shown to reduce, sexual gratification. I mean, that's a whole different thing. So let's not go down the slippery slope of.
Well, it's not that much different, because
it is hugely different. It's hugely different. The clitoris is a nerve bundle. Removing that is a very different thing.
Yes, and when you remove the foreskin, you're removing sensitive things too, right?
I have not seen a study for that. In fact, everything I've seen contrary to that. It's just a piece of skin.
If you want to talk about mutilation, how about if they started cutting the head off?
That would be
seriously.
I mean, that would be the equivalent of a remover of the clitoris. That would be the same thing. So I mean, we're talking about apples and oranges here. So
well, I found this one here says logistic regression analysis revealed that circumcised men reliably classified as having penile scarring. Because that can happen, right? Need for use of lubricant when undertaking sexual activity, reluctance, but it says about penile scarring. Because I can't open these papers, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just reading the abstracts.
Ask Jade. Jade's the queen of getting behind paywalls.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. Send me the link.
Or CRISPR has access too. He's got connections. He knows people that know a few other people that might know somebody.
See, because it says here the important functions of the foreskin have been highlighted, and others may yet to become apparent. Functions of foreskin listed by Slice and Harriman included protection of the glands through emollients that maintain the surface of the gland's penis, Immune response. Soft mucosa of the foreskin contains plasma cells which secrete antibodies and pathogen-killing enzymes such as lysine. Erogenous sensitivity. Foreskin contains a rich variety of large concentration of highly specialized nerve receptors, AG Meissner, Vital Pacini corpuscles, and free nerve endings equivalent to sensitivity to those in the fingertips, lips, mucosal lining of the mouth.
Well,
so you are removing.
This is why we need Mithridates and somebody who actually is a medical professional, because of course it has nerve endings, but everything has nerve endings. But I mean, is it something that's exceptional? Because again, when you're moving that skin, you still have skin underneath that's going to have nerve endings. So does it make a difference that way?
I just
So
put
it's,
the
but it's
link
not a
to
nerve
one.
bundle. I mean, it's not the same thing as the clitoris, which clearly is a high concentration of nerves. So I mean, unless people have a medical reason to put these things out, I need better sourcing than this. People are just like in life, they're just throwing things out like arbitrarily, and I don't want to go down that route.
There's something that I don't understand. You're pushing to where this is a good thing because of health benefits, and yeah, you gave us a link to the Circumcision mail, the website that you trust. I agree with that, and that's a good thing. But there is some kind of, how could I say, the logic doesn't follow. I mean, if it were true what they say, the operation would be more. The reason why people do that would be the reason why the benefits, the health benefits. That would be the main reason why people do that.
That is the main reason it's been practiced in the United States widely throughout most of the 20th century, is due to the perceived health benefits.
Okay, so
my impression is that the major reason is that it seems like that's what everybody else does. I've heard a lot of people saying things like, and actually I think Helena said earlier, that they don't want their kid to be made fun of in a locker room, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
cultural practice.
do you agree though it should be the parents' decision? I mean, do we at least agree with that? It should be the parents' decision.
It's sorry. The idea was in the USA. Like you take all the male in the USA, and what is the portion of them that are circumcised?
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, like I mean, percentage wise, do you know how much? Like, do you have an idea? Like 50, 70, 90, 99%?
It's virtually universal at one point.
Like today, you think that 99% of the
I don't
male
know.
in the USA are.
You're the one claiming that it's not practiced widely.
No, I'm asking.
But you just claimed before that it's not.
Yeah, I did see what I was.
In the word.
Yeah, when I was going through these papers.
Yeah. In the word, it's like it's only 30% of the male in the world that are circumcised.
In the world, we're talking about the United States. You're equivocating.
Yeah, can I take a crack at this, Brenda?
Wait. Here's the thing. I have the statistic for the world. I don't have the statistic for the USA. So I asked you guys who are in this chat, how high do you think the number is in the USA? Could you maybe look for it? Or do you have an idea, like a rate, like some proportion?
So I'm looking at numbers right now suggesting that as of about 2000 in the United States, it was about 94% or so. Now, there's a really important thing here, which is that if you're talking about as a percent of the entire world population, but there's a real problem there, which is that as everybody else has already said, and Brenda has emphasized several times, it's a highly cultural thing, right? So you would expect that the numbers would vary quite highly between different cultures, and indeed vary quite highly within different subcultures within a particular culture. So you would expect that, for instance, if you look at Jews living in the United States, you'd expect about 100%. and you might have some other minorities where it would be very, very low indeed. It would be very low percentage.
Well, let me ask you,
But
Chris, are you okay with cultural things? I mean, I'm okay with certain cultural things as long as it doesn't do significant harm. Like obviously, like female mutilation, that's completely different, right? That's a fair
Yeah.
harm. If somebody,
That's my position.
yeah,
That's
but
my
if,
position.
if somebody wants to do like elongation of your earlobes, right? Cultural. I
so
don't have a problem
I'll
with
say,
that.
let me say it this way: I don't have a problem with somebody doing it because it's a common cultural thing. I am somewhat bothered by the idea that it's done just because that's what the prevailing culture does, right?
Well,
That's
understandably
all.
so. No, I get what you're
That's
saying on
all the
that.
thought that goes into it. But
No.
but yeah, I mean, if somebody decides, well, that's the culture, so we'll do that. That
Yeah.
doesn't really do any harm. So
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I was wondering. Hey guys, how you doing? It's nice to talk to you guys. I was wondering how do you think? What do you think if there are any differences between, say, skin removal from, say, extreme weight loss versus like skin removal from circumcision?
What do you mean?
I'm not really sure what you're debating on with the is circumcision like morally wrong or
Well, no,
Well,
I don't even care about the moral aspects of it per se. That's really not even my
Okay.
goal for the topic. It's more, is it medically justified? Should it be a practice that we
Oh.
do because it's medically beneficial to do so, or is it something that has more harm than benefits? Is it a cultural practice that is more harmful than beneficial? And we
Oh.
all know it's a cultural practice as well. That's not a contention, right?
people
So-
people that have had extreme weight loss have flabs of skin because the skin loses its elasticity, so they have to have a surgical
Right.
procedure to basically
Sure.
excise that skin. Now, that's an elective procedure.
Yeah, well, circumcision is usually an elective procedure too, right? But I mean, again,
Yeah.
the only difference is
Yeah.
that the adults are making it on themselves. But here we have a case where the parents make that decision for their
Yeah,
child.
parents have the right to give consent for
Which
surgical
I think is a big
surgical
thing.
procedures on their children.
I think that
Okay.
this should be left in the hands of the parents. This is where I definitely
Yeah.
have that position.
So
Yeah.
I think I just came back to the hangout. I was looking for the numbers, and then I found out the same thing that is in the hangout right now. And I'm wondering if these 70 or 80% were because of the culture, or was it because of the medical reason or cultural reason? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question I was wondering, because, of course, when we said earlier, when you look around the world, you have like a discrepancy. Like numbers that vary a lot.
Discrepancy.
Yeah, thank you. And numbers that vary a lot from a country to another. So we could talk about something that we know more. Like I think most of you are from the USA. So do you think that from the people that you know, that you've met, they did it for health reason, or did they do it because of religion or some kind of cultural reason?
Well,
I
I think we're moving past the
there were health
cultural reasons.
benefits.
What's that, Helen?
Well,
I was just
If
saying,
you-
I think we used to think that there were real health benefits, but now we realize that that's sort of a smokescreen, a red herring. And so the real decision, in my opinion, is being made on the locker room consideration.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's really a prevalent thing. I mean, obviously, sure, it's a consideration, but really, I don't see that being
Absolutely.
a
When
big thing.
I can tell you when I was considering it, that was the thing that pressed most heavily.
Really?
If I didn't have the locker room consideration, I wouldn't have circumcised in a minute.
Hmm.
Absolutely not. So the only pressure, the only concern I had was, if I don't circumcise, is that going to negatively affect him psychologically and emotionally as a kid? And I think I decided I'm not going to do it anyway because it takes away his decision making.
Yeah, and that's
And
that's
he
that's
has a
what I
right.
think is you're right. I think it should be the solely the decision of the parents. Either way,
It
right?
shouldn't be or should be. Sorry.
It should be. It should be the sole right of the parents.
To remove the skin from their
If
children.
they want to have their child to
I
be
think it should
circumcised
be
or
the
not.
right of. I think ultimately it should be the right of the person, not the person's.
Yeah, see, I don't think I mean, from what
Parent.
I understand, circumcision later on in life is much more complicated, much more painful. I mean,
And
parents
has
make
more
these,
complications.
yeah, more complications. I think, parents. This is one of the things that they as parents need to decide what they think is the best for their child.
So if you want to make the point that it's a good thing to circumcise someone because of the health benefits, you have to take into account why people do it. Is it for the health benefit, or is it for the religion, or the something else than the health benefits? Because you have to. That's the thing. You're saying that we shouldn't talk about the environment, and this is the
Yes.
main reason why the action is done.
No, so actually, I really disagree with that. I mean, if you're going to say that it shouldn't be done, then you need. It's not enough that it's only done for cultural reasons to say it shouldn't be done. You have to be able to provide evidence of negative effects.
Okay.
To say it shouldn't be done.
See,
If you want to
my
say it
point
should be
is-
done for
Yeah.
reasons other than cultural reasons, you need to provide positive medical benefits.
Sure.
But if the argument is that it's about neutral and it's cultural, then let it happen, right? So if your argument is that it's just cultural, so it shouldn't happen, I don't think that argument stands.
Yeah, I don't have a
No,
problem with it being
I'm
just
saying that
cultural either. By the
the-
way, let me make that
the
clear. I
health-
don't have a problem with that.
I'm saying that the health benefits are not a reason to do it. This is my point. Like you present it as there
You
is
don't
some
need-
health benefits.
You don't
Um,
need health benefits to do it. You need negative.
that-
You need health risks to not do it.
That's
That's
the
more
argument
that's
you're
more
making.
my point too. I mean, if there's a cultural thing which we all agree upon, I don't think it's any contention there whatsoever. And we also say that there are some benefits. Now there might be
Yeah.
some downside too. I mean, there might be things out there saying that there might be some loss of sexual gratification or lubrication. Sure, I'll concede that there might be something along those lines. I think there's evidence either way on that, but you really need to point
it's kinda
out
like
that
this,
there's some
right?
major negative things, and which I haven't quite seen. The reason I'm saying this
Okay.
is I don't
Let me-
see hang on. I don't see a lot of people really making a big push in the medical field not to have circumcision. So yeah, it's just things like circumcision.org and
Let
whatever.
me
But go ahead.
let me throw out an analogy, if I could. I like to drink coffee, right? I'm in a culture that likes coffee, right? It could be that there are some minor health risks to coffee consumption. It could be that there are some health benefits to coffee consumption. But I don't drink coffee because of those reasons. I drink it because that's my culture, right? And so if you want to tell me I shouldn't drink coffee, you need something more than, well, it's just cultural for that.
I
You
see.
need to
Yeah.
show that it's bad for me. Because otherwise, why not just keep doing it for culture? Right?
That's-
Now, if I
that's
was if I want to make the argument that you should be drinking coffee, right? Then I need to show you health benefits. But not, I mean, Brenda's not trying to say that people who don't have the culture should be doing it, right?
Absolutely
I don't think anybody
not.
else has,
Right.
So it's just the only thing that I've heard anybody say is that the people who do it for culture, in this room at least, I have heard other people outside of this room say it, but in this room, I've only heard people say people who want to do it for cultural reasons should be allowed to because there's no serious harm, right? And so,
Yeah,
and it's cultural.
that's my position.
Yeah,
That's my
yes,
position.
you could apply that to anything. You could say that to drinking too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
one beer a day has been shown to have health benefits. I think we all kind of would agree
Careful
upon
with
that, right? Or a
Yeah, I
glass
have
of wine.
I have
Careful
a
with
friend.
Right, but if you have
I have
12
a friend
glasses,
who's
hang on,
a cardiologist.
if you have 12 glasses of wine a day, not so good, right? So whether you drink that wine for
Not so
cultural
good.
reasons, or you drink that one glass of wine or half a glass of wine because you like it, generally speaking, the benefits are supposed to be better. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a tautology.
So
The benefits are supposed to be better. That's kind of a tautology, but you know what I mean. But I mean,
there are benefits,
yeah.
and when you talk about circumcision and the benefits of circumcision, you have to weigh in the said you don't hear much about what's wrong with circumcising someone, and the wrongness come from the fact that, for me at least, the way I understand it, the risks taken by doing so are higher than the risk that the benefits that you reap
Actually, just the
from
opposite.
the risk.
I mean, like I said, I just talked to Mithridates the other day. He's a general practitioner that actually does circumcisions. Um, I think that if there was more chances of being complications or something like that, I think that he would have said something along those lines. I mean, a doctor's
Okay.
not going to perform a procedure. I wouldn't think they would perform a procedure if they know that the procedure causes more damage than there's benefits. That doesn't
Yes,
seem
I
to
agree.
be
I agree
something that
that
would
in
make
the
sense from
USA,
a medical point of view.
yeah, the medical people in the USA, they are trained, they have tools at their disposition, but it's not the same thing for the rest of the world. You know what I mean? It's not. You're not the center of the universe. That's
Yeah.
something that's really hard to comprehend. But you know, everywhere else, they don't have the training and the how do you say, the environment that you have in the USA. So yeah, it could be better in some cases or places in the world like the USA.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the world, and you know, people, I live in Canada here, and circumcision isn't something that is popular. Like, it's not cultural here, so we don't have the pressure that the mother, what's her name again, Elena, has to do it. You know, so the only reason some people do it here would be religion, like they say they're Muslim or something, or it would be for health benefits.
Right.
We
Well,
don't have the
that's the whole
cultural
topic. I mean,
pressure, like,
is it just cultural
yeah,
or is there health benefits? But and I want to avoid the slippery slope stuff that I'm seeing in the live feed.
of cultural. Yeah.
People are saying things like, "Well, should we remove breasts because breasts can contribute to cancer later on?" I find that to be a really slippery slope argument. I don't think it's even. I don't know if they're trying to do reductio absurdum. I kind of want to avoid those kind of things because that's completely different. If people can't see the difference between circumcision and removing breasts, then I don't know what to tell them because I find that to be very, very slippery slope. Maybe they're not. Maybe they are trying to make a legitimate argument, but I think that's kind of a really crappy argument. So I mean, do you guys want to address that? Or, I mean, do you guys really think that's even worthy to bring up? I mean, should we remove breasts because it could reduce cancer later on? No, I don't think that's even remotely considered to be something that parents should be allowed to do with their children. But that's a
It's
completely different
extreme.
thing.
Well, when you put, I like the idea that you just said. I haven't read it, but yeah, I like the idea because you go to the extreme. If we do that for the foreskin of the penis, why wouldn't we do that for, like, and then we go up, 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 and then we get to the point where we don't have breast because we want to prevent breast cancer. That's the risk. Again, the risk that you have, the health benefit risks that you reap, the benefits and the risk are not, for me at least, it's not a good argument. You should not do it because of the health benefit. You should do it because
Right.
of other reasons.
Yeah, and by the way, no, I'm not trying to avoid arguments, but slippery slope arguments are called slippery slope fallacy for a reason, because they're not actually dealing with the actual topic at hand. They use really absurd things to try to make points where there really is no point to be made.
Well, I don't think it's really absurd. I mean, you're saying that you should remove the skin because it could cause cancer down the road.
No,
It's the same thing as say, well, remove the breast because it could cause.
That's only one
But that's not the
small.
argument.
That's not the argument at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it. Look, the thing is, if the first guy says people should be allowed to do it because it's cultural. And the second guy says, yeah, but what about these possible negative effects? Then the other person, to counter that, might say, yeah, but there's some possible benefits too, right? Because then the possible benefits and risks balance out, right? But that's not to say that it should be done for those possible benefits, right? It just means that the other guy's argument of don't do it because of the risks, right, is countered, right? Because it balances. And so I think that you're kind of jumping between this idea that of what the actual position is, because the position is it's cultural and is roughly neutral, and so let people do it for cultural reasons. And then you're saying, well, but you keep talking about the benefits. Well, yeah, because everybody else keeps talking about the harms, right? So
well, and that's the point that I'm trying to make as well, Christopher. And so people need to really kind of say, okay, there's benefits to it, there's harms to it. We'll concede there's probably good and bad about everything. Which one has the better, greater good? And I haven't seen anything so far to sway me that circumcision has more detrimental effects than beneficial. That's just me so far. Now, anybody else can have their own opinion, obviously.
Me too. The detrimental, like it's a bad thing to do it. Like you don't have benefits. Well, you have some, but they are not worth the risk.
Well, that's what we're trying to find out. I haven't seen anything to actually support that yet.
Okay, so that's because, well, I'm not. You see, there is the phrase I put out there was talking about the psychological effects coming from that. And when you talk about psychology, you don't have like a measurement, a precise measurement. It's like a feeling of something like that. And people, we usually dismiss the psychological effect from circumcision because they are not numbers. You know what I mean?
Are you saying that children are growing up psychologically impaired of some kind because of being circumcised, or they not have been circumcised, as the case like what Helena was pointing out? You think there's psychological trauma there?
Something that they're using the terms violation, torture, mutilation, and sexual assault.
I think those are all hyperbolic and I think completely off the mark.
And also, you're talking about a very, very small population of people, right? I mean, you could almost lump that in as a complication risk, right?
There are vaccinations do cause significant harm to a very small number of patients. Some people die from vaccinations. But nevertheless, vaccination should be practiced because it confers more benefits than harms.
Well, and that's, again, this is what we're saying. I mean, this is the thing. Somebody says it's a straw man. No, it's not a straw man. The whole point of it is there more medical benefits to have circumcisions than the detrimental effects. I think that's a very fair way of looking at it, is it not? I mean, obviously you have the cultural consideration as well, but again, we've all decided that's obviously a consideration. Nobody in the right mind would say circumcision doesn't have cultural reasoning for it, or that's where it stems from. So that's a fact. But as far as a medical thing,
even sometimes really bad cultural reasoning in the past, right?
Sure.
Just to throw that out there.
The cultural reasons are to be taken into account. I mean, you cannot. I don't think we can. The psychological effects from coming from that circumcision, of course, the violation, torture, mutilation, sexual assault are something that are extreme. I do agree with you. I mean, there are the extreme.
Do you have
part?
Do you happen to have a reference that gives numbers on the percent of people who feel that way as adults?
No, I don't. The point of bringing that up is that there are complications that cannot be quantified. That's the point. You
But they haven't
cannot
been.
have numbers from that. I mean,
You can have numbers from that.
that.
You do a survey of people who've been circumcised, and you ask them, do you feel like your circumcision was an assault or a violation or a mutilation or whatever else, right?
Well,
And you get responses back, and they say, if 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 10 say, yeah, that's the way I feel about it. You've got numbers now. Okay?
The only groups I would probably say that you'd find those maybe RN or maybe like the MRA or the MGTOW. I think they kind of some of them
but I think
that I've ran
that's
into
not.
think that.
I mean, that's irrelevant, Steve. I mean, if he's trying to say that think of coming to decide as an adult that having had this done to you was a serious harm to you, right? Psychologically, I think you can just count that as a risk of the procedure.
Yes,
okay?
It would be. Oh, absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely, sure.
It's a very, very small minority
Very
of people
small, I'm sure.
who feel that way as adults, right? So it's just like any of the other complications. It's a very small amount, and if you don't even have the numbers to say what that percentage is.
Well, that page that you loaded for me there, it's on page 8. They talk about that. The adult man reported experiencing emotional physical harm as a result of being circumcised. In Hammond's poll, many responded attributed emotional distress to their circumcised state, including feelings of mutilation. 60% and psychological and physical suffering that impeded emotional intimacy in partners, often resulting in sexual dysfunction, which is 41%.
What was the demographic they studied on that? Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just trying to
curious,
read
because
through this
I mean,
list, everybody.
I can tell you right now, I'm circumcised. It's never even crossed my mind as far as a psychological thing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's that paper. I mean, that's that paper CRISPR posted for me. It's in the chat if you want to look at it.
I have a question though. Is this from newborns that are being circumcised, or men that are being circumcised as?
Well, there was a thing in it too about men who have been circumcised, how they have lost sensitivity.
In the study,
that after men were circumcised.
Yeah, because I was listening to that, and I'm thinking, well, if you got circumcised when you were
Wait, hold on a second.
a few months old, you're not going to
I got to
remember.
make a point here, right? Okay, so this survey is saying that that basically 2 in 5 men have these problems, or in some cases 3 in 5. I think we've got enough to test that theory, not with statistical significance, obviously, but and I think that the results are that study should be seen as highly questionable. And I'm actually trying to find the actual an actual link to that specific study. It's just the authors keep referring to it as Hammond's poll or Hammond's survey or study or whatever, and I can't find the actual citation within it. So if you see that where that is, that'd be helpful.
I don't know. I don't know anything about researching stuff like that. I was just trying to look it up on when I had time when Steve posted his comment, because I did post I gave him a link for a page where there were some other doctors talking about it. Doctors opposing circumcision. So this is, I don't know, it's not Mayo Clinic or anything. But they were talking about how they oppose it, and I didn't get too very far in there.
Jade, are you there, Jade?
But I was this other one here, an elective infant circumcision. In a 2012 position statement, the Academy states that the systematic evaluation of medical literature shows that the preventive health benefits of elective circumcision on male newborns outweigh the risk of the procedure, and that the health benefits are sufficient to justify across the procedure for families choosing it and warrant third-party payment.
That sounds good.
But are not great enough to recommend routine circumcision for all male newborns.
Yeah.
This is from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Yeah. That goes in line with what everybody's been saying.
Yeah, it's a wiki page, so I think here's the link in this chat.
Yeah, that goes along with what we've been saying.
Jade, are you there? Is she there yet? She popped in, but said something. But
so Steve, according to that paper, that they're saying the health benefits really aren't outweighing the benefits of the circumcision, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Actually, that's exactly the opposite of what you just read.
Well, no, because this says,
Oh, now he read it, and now he can't. Now he's not going to say. Why don't you read it again?
I will. Hey, well, calm down. I don't know why you're jumping on my ass. In a 2012 position statement, the Academy stated that a systematic evaluation of medical literature shows that the preventive health benefits of elective circumcision of male newborns outweigh the risks of procedure, right? And the health
Right.
benefits
The benefits outweigh the risks.
yeah.
Got it.
And that the
Got
health
it.
benefits are sufficient to justify access to this procedure for families choosing it and to warrant third-party payment for
Yes.
circumcision of male newborns.
Yeah, and that's
But
kind,
are
I mean,
not.
that's been my
Listen,
position.
hang on. It's not done.
Yeah.
But are not great enough to recommend routine circumcision for all male newborns. The Academy takes
Sure. Sure.
Well, I don't think it
position
should.
that
I don't know
parents
if
should
by
make.
routine. What do they mean routine?
Hang on, the Academy takes a position that the parent should make the final decision
That's what I said.
about
Absolutely.
circumcision after.
Absolutely. That's what we've been. That's what
That's
we've
exactly
been
what I've
saying.
been
Thank
saying,
you.
though.
Can
I
just-
don't think it should be routine where they automatically just do it. I mean, that's
Also,
not my
if I
argument.
just-
I could make that maybe, but that's not my argument. My argument has been since the very beginning, the parents should be the one that makes that decision.
Also, can I just say something quickly? So I found the some kind of publication relevant to the poll that's being referenced in there. It was put out by, performed by an institution referred to as No Harm, which is an acronym that includes National Organization to Halt the Abuse and Routine Mutilation of Males, which I have to admit is rather clever that they turned that into No Harm. I'm always glad to see a clever acronym.
Sure. I just don't like the hyperbolic language because I think it doesn't serve a purpose.
Yeah, no, but it's a good job. They did a good job there.
That'd be a MGTOW group.
I think it actually
surprise me.
precedes that. No, because this is from 1999. I don't think that was even a thing then.
It may not be a MGTOW group, but the MGTOWs might like going there.
Yeah, probably.
Sure,
Anyway,
I
the
would
point
agree
is,
with
I find this, just everything about this, to be highly suspect. It does not look like a properly conducted study. And if I go back, one moment, please.
Just your mic is a little bit harsh.
Sorry.
Hey, there's Jade.
Jackie.
Yeah, here we go.
Jade, you want to weigh in real quick? Your mic's
just to add, I only have a couple things I could add here
You
about
never have just a couple
historically.
things.
Yeah, well, this is not a not being a man, I think, than women, but I wanted to point out that even going back to the 1970s, a number of feminists were against circumcision. Because why? Was the necessity of doing this? I can historically tell you that this is apocryphal. This is comes from my family. I had a number of relatives, female relatives, who were what you back then called practical nurses. The equivalent maybe of an LVN today. These were women who didn't go to school, but they started working in the hospital, and they mostly looked after patients. They cleaned them, they cleaned wounds, they made sure dressings were changed, and things like that. And sometimes, if they were talented, they were allowed to start IVs and do sutures. This is we're going way back, because we're talking about people who were born in the beginning of last century. In other words, in the early 1900s. So and this was more prevalent, I think, in rural areas. Told, okay, is that, and again, this is apocryphal, but this is what they were told. Is we had a long conversation about this once, because I asked why men were circumcised. That what happened was that, in the, think of the latter part of the 18th century, early part of the 19th century, here in the United States, we had these big cities filled with immigrants living in squalor. Their hygiene was very, very poor. People had to go to the corner to get their water. There were outhouses even in big cities. And the doctors noticed that a lot of these men had developed serious urinary infections, because it's very difficult. Keep your hands clean, much less keep your foreskins clean. And that because of this, the doctors decided that the best thing to do was to try to push male circumcision, because then if the foreskin wasn't there, they wouldn't have this problem of stuff accumulating there and people using their dirty hands to urinate, and then there wouldn't be so many infections, and including some really serious ones. And so they started to push male circumcision. Now this, remember, I don't have, except several female members of my family, saying that this is what they were told when they started to work in hospitals. And we're talking, okay, the upper middle Midwest. So that was the story I was told. And I do know that, during World War II, circumcision became far more popular here in the United States. And, during World War II, about the Nazis and everything, and the way they could tell if someone was Jewish or not was whether they were circumcised, because few men in Europe were circumcised unless they were Jews. There's an incident I remember reading of a historical text where they were about to grab some guy and take him off, and sorry for the vague details, and somebody else screamed, "He's an..." And then, okay, we'll check on that. So he barely escaped being hauled off to camp.
Your audio cut out, and we missed part of that.
Huh?
Your audio breaking up a little bit. Not much.
Oh, okay, hang on. Let me get this. All right. Okay. So that's the main thing I can add to it. That's the story.
Well, what's your position on it, by the way, Jade?
I don't see any reason for it, because
Okay.
Even let's assume that what my relatives were told was correct. We don't have those conditions anymore. We have running water and we have soap.
Do you still should be left up to the parents, though?
I would encourage the parents not to do it.
Right, but it should be left up to, should the final decision be theirs?
The final decision should be theirs, but I think we need to change the conversation in this country to not just because it's needed. There's, what's her name? Anyway, she was on The View for a while and then left.
Whoopi Goldberg?
But
I don't know.
no, not The View. I'm sorry. The Talk, the other one, the one that.
Wait, did they leave of their own choice, or were they kicked off because of their opinions that they said something stupid?
Kicked off. It was can't remember her name. I think her husband's an athlete. But anyway, when their sons were born, she was talking. They had this conversation about circumcision, and she said when her sons were born, her husband wanted them circumcised. Why? And he said, because I want them to look like me. And that's a really stupid reason to get your kids circumcised.
I think it's a perfectly good.
Yeah, I wanted to, before when I made that statement earlier, and that Steve and Brenda was so happy to hear. Now it said the other part of this paragraph says, after release of the position statement, a debate appeared in the Journal of Pediatrics and the Journal of Medical Ethics. A group of 38 Northern European doctors, aesthetics, and lawyers co-authored a comment stating they found the AAP's, the American Association of Pediatrics technical report and policy statement suffered from cultural bias and reached recommendations and conclusions different from those of physicians in other parts of the world. An opinion by two authors state that, in their view, the AAP's analysis was inaccurate, improper, and incomplete. So they're saying that what I just read to you earlier about, the
an organization of lawyers. Is that what you said?
The Journal of Medical Ethics, a group of 38 Northern European doctors, aesthetics, and lawyers co-authored a comment stating that that the AAP's analysis was inaccurate, improper, and incomplete.
Yeah, I've read that as well. But
they also received.
I'm just saying that what you read first is more in line with what I'm agreeing with, right? Regardless of the validity or not, that's my position. But Wolf, do you want to weigh in, Wolf?
Oh, go ahead, Wolf.
Yeah, sure. My view on circumcisions is that I don't think that parents really should actually recommend that for their children. I think they should honestly wait until the child comes of age to say if they want to have that decision, they could do that. There is, some data around that says that it might have some benefit, at least in places that they're high HIV infection, that might reduce the risk for it. So I honestly think that more data needs to be gathered, but mainly it's up to the person when they come of age if they want that decision done for themselves. I think that they're doing it for some arbitrary reason. I want them to look like me, or because it's my religion says this. I think that should be sort of set aside for the medical and scientific reasons. That's my position on that.
So you think it should be removed from the parents and given to the doctors, make it for their decision?
Well, I think for the child when they come of age, that's what I think, and also wait for the medical reasons.
Right, I get that, but I'm asking you, if the doctors determine that it's medically justified and beneficial, should they be able to do it arbitrarily, regardless of the wishes of the parents, or should it be something that the parents should be able to do regardless of the medical justification or not?
I honestly think that it really shouldn't necessarily be in the hands of the doctors. I really think that that honestly, the parents should care about the child's health, but they should wait until they're old enough to actually give consent for that.
Okay.
So,
Jackie.
Steve, I wanted to push back on you a little
sure.
bit. I wanted to ask you
Then Jackie.
why you keep insisting that it should be up to the parents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we don't have to talk about the legal aspect. Let's just talk theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you thinking that it should be up to the guy and not his parents?
Because I think the parents, because one, again, complications later on are much greater for circumcision. It's much more painful. Very few people will have it done later on in life. And so if there's medical benefits to it, it probably should be done, as an infant, which of course is going to be a lot less traumatic because they won't remember it, obviously.
So for you, it hinges on whether or not there really are medical benefits.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if I can take a crack at this, though.
Yeah.
So I would say, personally, I would agree that it should be, ideally, left until the person can make their own decision, right? But I think that the weight of the concern over the culture and just the fact that it's fairly neutral overall suggests that there's really no significant harm done if the parents do that. And so I think that while I might agree with you that that it's an ideal that be done, I don't think that saying that that it necessarily outweighs the sort of the other side of it. I don't think that saying that that's ideal is sufficient to stop the practice, I guess is my point.
So one's an idealized situation rather than being a more practical one.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Jackie, go ahead. Yes. I haven't ignored you, Jackie. Just we got a lot of people. So hi.
Okay.
By the way, did you get snow? I gotta know because people have asked me before I went on air about the weather up there. Did it snow?
Yes, it snowed.
Wow.
We have about inch or two. Can you see my mountain from there?
I
Does
haven't
it look
looked
like there's
outside
snow?
yet. I was going to, because people were telling me this morning that the mountain range got dumped on, and I was going to go.
Yeah, we got dumped on. But I live in the town that's just on the snow line. But if you go further up the mountain, there's a lot more snow.
So early. Wow. Okay. Anyways, go ahead. What say you?
Yeah. That's actually funny because I'm gonna start with that. I was gonna ask if you could see any snow on my mountain from where you are. But anyways, I think that good reason to have a newborn circumcised, unless that infant has specific medical complications in that region, that are not normal. I think that we should treat circumcision just as we treat female genital mutilation in terms of legality. I don't think it should be up to the parents. because it really should be up to the kid who's being mutilated, and that kid should have the choice to get a circumcision later on in life. And the reason why is we live in a Western world where we have running water and everything clean, and the excuse of, well, it gets dirty there, excuse, because I just see that as laziness. As long as we teach our boys how to clean there and such like that, then it really shouldn't be a problem. But if it becomes a problem, then the parents should be able to take their kid in, and the doctor can recommend it and all that. But it just feels like it's almost like, hey, we should cut off our pinky toes because they have a risk of getting scraped. And
well, we talked about that earlier before you got here, Jackie.
That's kind of
we talked about that
how
earlier. That was a huge slippery slope that came up, and I don't think that is even relative to the conversation. Cutting off of extremities, coming off of breast for reduced breast cancer, at an early age, that kind of stuff, to me is kind of hyperbolic. It doesn't really add to the conversation because it's not the same thing. I understand what you're saying.
It's an amazing comparison.
I think it's a really, really bad comparison.
Like the whole point, the health benefit that you get from circumcision is it not being dirty. You don't get infections. You don't get.
But as Crispin pointed out, it's a pretty neutral operation for the most part. I don't see any kind of extreme thing by having circumcision either way.
It might be neutral in terms of whether or not people really care about it, but we're in a world where people have gotten so used to everyone being circumcised that they don't think anything of it. If we're talking about female genital mutilation,
again, totally different thing. That's a completely different operation, though.
Yeah, Jackie, that is different from the topic we're discussing.
Yeah, that's a completely different operation.
It is slightly different, but why don't we
There's a huge difference in scale in terms of percent tissue removed, loss of sensitivity. Basically, it's just such a completely different thing. It's almost would be analogous to removing the entire penis.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on the culture.
Well, let me ask Jackie this, if I can, CRISPR. I definitely think it's completely different. But do you believe, Jackie, that we should take away the ability for a parent to have their child circumcised?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I have to 1,000% disagree with that. That to me is just not in the realm of reality.
I don't see the point. I don't see how any possible health benefits really justifies having your child circumcised. There might be health benefits, but like I said, you were saying that it's not relevant to the conversation. It's a slippery slope, but I disagree. I think the comparison of getting rid of your pinky toe or something that is considered insignificant, it's the same thing. In my eyes, it's highly comparable.
Why should the state violate parental rights over a procedure that has beneficial consequences for the child?
Or just even, even just as a cultural thing. But hang on, check it. Just even as a cultural thing. We all have established that culturally there are reasons people are circumcised, that you can't get away from that. Now, since I come from a Jewish background, I was circumcised. If my parents were taking away that right as a cultural thing because of their cultural Jewness, which by the way my parents really weren't. My mom was kind of a little bit Jewish, but never really a big thing. My dad was Protestant, but you're saying that they should eliminate that altogether, and I'm like, well, that is a bit, to me, an extreme position.
It might seem like an extreme position, but I guess in my opinion, it feels like common sense to me.
I don't think
I don't
that's
think
my
cultural
opinion.
reasons. I don't think cultural or reason should have any weight on what we should be, what
Well,
should be
in an
legal and what should
idealized
be illegal.
society, maybe, but we don't live in an idealistic society. We live in reality.
Can I?
I'm just not hearing a reason why the state should violate parental rights. I'm hearing
wanna
it's
make
my
it-
opinion, it's just common sense. But this is not an argument.
You wanna
I
make
was
it
looking
illegal?
for an argument.
Let's change a little
the
bit.
grown,
Hang on one
child
sec.
could
Hang
do
on a
it
sec, Luke.
itself, can he?
One sec. I'm going to keep this video to 2 hours, so we only have 30 minutes left. So I'm definitely keeping this only at 2 hours. We're not going to run over because people want to watch this later on. That people had messaged me they wanted to join, but they couldn't for various reasons. But they definitely want to watch it. So I do want to get Hogtie in now that he decided to grace us with his presence.
I delightfully slept in this morning. How are you going to keep it under 2 hours? Because now I've missed 90 minutes of it. You just got to repeat everything you said before. Actually,
Rewind.
no.
That's why I have DVR.
Let me guess.
on here.
Let me guess what you said so far. So there's people who've come in and have pointed out various health concerns associated, health risks associated with circumcision. And after some discussion, you guys looked at it. When it turns out there's actually really not that much that really goes wrong or health problems created by penile circumcision. And there are a few people who've come in and said, well, there are these health benefits to circumcision. And then you look at it and it turns out it's trivial. There's really not much to be said by way of health benefits. But generally speaking, people who assert that there are health benefits to circumcision tend to stick to their guns, notwithstanding the complete lack of data that there's really any benefit to it at all.
So good.
Yeah. And let's see, various comparisons to, well, really it's kind of like female genital mutilation. And to whatever extent it is like female genital mutilation, who cares? Like it's got, you're talking about the topic, right? To say, the only reason to say it's like female genital mutilation is because we all agree that female genital mutilation is bad. So therefore male genital, let's call it mutilation, because now people do that, that must be just as bad. And then, of course, somebody here would have pointed out, well, that's like cutting off the entire penis, which it's not. It would be more like
the tip,
removing the glands.
Yeah. Glands, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So the only thing that
identical structures.
Yeah, it'd be yeah. Yeah, there's certainly a different. It's very much a different procedure. It's the only point that I want to say, and I wonder if this has been said or not, is the point about. Or as the thing I heard just before I came in was about well, should we remove toes because somebody might get a toenail infection and things like that, and that's that weird slippery slope thing. I mean, it's a useful thought exercise, but it only as far as it is useful. I'm wondering if somebody has brought up the point about ethical inertia. That what's weird about this, when it comes to saying, well, should parents have a right to choose any sort of tissue removal or amputation or body modification at all for the infant, which clearly can't engage in informed consent. That when you frame the question that way, it's really weird because the answer is obviously no. And yet we already have a cultural practice that's in place that oh yeah, no, you have a baby boy, yeah. So when do you want to schedule the circumcision? That's just the way it's done. And can you imagine being a OBGYN or a pediatrician and having a patient come in and say, oh, okay, so we're going to have, our son, and then, we're going to have to do this. And then, but after the baby's born, on the second day, we want to come in to have his earlobes removed. Well, why would you do that? Well, that's just what we do in our culture. You would have a lot of trouble getting a doctor in your country or mine to say, okay, yeah, let's do an earlobectomy, because that's their culture to do that. That's something that most physicians or surgeons would simply turn their back on. They just would not participate in something like that. And yet circumcision is something that's just, penile circumcision is something that's just considered routine. So what's interesting about this discussion is we're not really debating, well, should parents have the right to choose which tissues the baby's allowed to leave the hospital with intact, right? That's not really the discussion, because to say now that we don't want to have infant penile circumcision with only parents' consent and doctor proceeding ethically. We don't want to have that anymore. That's actually a change. You're instituting a change in public policy. And it's just really, it's very easy to sit back and say, well, if everybody had amnesia or I was starting a whole new culture myself, would I want to allow for I'll wrap up on this point. If somebody were to ask me that question, Like if you just started a colony on Mars, would you have the doctors just do penile circumcision just because that's what you do? I would say no. No. If I were to start over with human civilization, I don't think we ever should have done the first penile circumcision on any.
I think if I were starting
Well, I can understand like why we did it before because of cleanliness, but we live in a world now where it's easy to stay clean, especially
but no.
No?
But no, that's not it. It's got nothing to do with cleanliness or hygiene. I mean, people know how to.
Was it purely
we teach our children how to clean between their toes and wash behind their ears, and there's proper foreskin maintenance. I mean, think about this. Think about girls, right? Like when they're very young and you got to change their diaper. There's like little bits you got to get a Q-tip sometimes and clean out little bits. Boys, you got nothing to worry about. And as a little girl gets older and she has to learn various maintenance bits about, oh, well, sometimes stuff gets in this little space here and you got to make sure this is clean and you got to check this once in a while that it's the right color. And like, there's a lot of care and maintenance that goes into having, girl bits. Yeah. A boy with a foreskin is certainly nowhere nearly as complicated. So this idea that somehow people had trouble keeping it clean, I mean, come on! It's girls haven't had problems with this.
Well, and on top of that, I wouldn't know because I don't have.
I really want to wrap up on this point. So. And that was because Jackie interrupted literally in what was my last sentence. Is that if somebody wanted to start a Mars colony, I would say no, let's just never do them again. But that's not the issue here. The issue is given that it's just there's that ethical inertia that we do this. And even though it has historically a religious background, not a hygiene background, it is something that's done. What we're discussing then is saying, let's take away the parent's right to decide to remove that particular piece of tissue, and that itself is a bit of an ethical choice.
And that's where my argument comes in, Hogtie. That's where my argument, and I do agree with you. And I have to agree. I don't think it was a big hygiene issue. I don't think that was even a big part of it. I think that it is something that kind of got blown out of proportion.
I just wanted to add on to what Hogtie was saying there about that too. Is that I mean, do you really think in terms of a teenage boy that you're really going to have that much trouble getting them to do that?
No, and again, that's why I'm saying I don't think it's a big issue.
They'll take care of that on their own.
But I think there's two things at play here, CRISPR. There's two things at play.
Confident.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with the Hogtie 1,000% on it. One, if we had to start over again, probably not. Probably we wouldn't have circumcision unless we could really show that there's a substantial amount of benefits that outweigh the harm. I agree with CRISPR. I think it's kind of a neutral thing. I think it's kind of no big deal either way. But I do believe right now it should be left up to the parents. By taking away their decision-making ability on it, that raises additional ethical concerns. Now, I don't think that parents should be able to come in and say, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, we want to do, we move this and this because of because of cultural things. That ethical inertia you're talking about. Yeah, that I think most of us can agree outright that probably wouldn't make much sense to go down that line and have parents be able to do that. But since we do have a well-established thing about circumcision in our culture, do we want to remove now something that's been ingrained in our culture, the parents' ability to do that? That to me is really the topic of discussion. Would you agree on that?
And could I add? Yeah, but I wanted to add something about that because when you're talking about cultural, I had typed some modern Jews are now doing a ritual of circumcision. They're not actually removing the foreskin. What they do is they rub a local anesthetic on the foreskin of the baby, the foreskin with a needle to get a drop of blood. And that's it. That's all they do.
Actually,
it satisfies to them, it satisfies the ritualistic, cultural.
It's interesting.
Hey, hot time.
And it fools God. Does it fool God the same way that getting someone else to press the buttons in the elevator for you does?
I don't know, but
hey, Hogtie.
At least it's a movement in the right direction, I think.
Hey, Hogtie. If you were starting a colony on Mars, would you fluoridate the water?
Oh, I'd have to look at the data for that. I haven't really looked too hard at the whole water fluoride thing, but I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So what would be wrong with just generally having circumcision practice then.
Yeah, and be sure not
Be the same justification.
Well, not really, no, because there's actual data on the fluoride issue. There's no, I know. So people will carry a study with them about the harms, and people will carry some studies with them about the benefits of having circumcision, and really, it's medically neutral, right? The real motivation. Just 1 second.
Oh, kids in the background there.
Yeah.
Duct tape.
That's funny. They've been super quiet the whole time. What I'm saying about I did lose my thread. Sorry, Brenda. What was your point?
If fluoridation as public policy is okay because it reduces dental caries in the population, even though fluoridated toothpaste is available to everybody and proper dental hygiene is available to everybody, then it seems to me, for the same reasons, circumcision could also be promoted as public policy, even though proper hygiene and proper use of soap and water can be used. People don't always wash themselves. People don't brush their teeth. People don't use fluoridated toothpaste always. People don't always clean underneath their foreskin.
Right.
So as a public policy, I think the two are comparable.
Okay. Well, there's one little bit of difference, and that's first off, I pause a little bit before you say, well, about the fluoride in the water, because what I haven't seen, in part because I haven't really looked for it, is there a demonstration of the marginal difference, right? So what I'm saying is, if you had a society, let's say you imagine that there's 3 towns, one of them that doesn't have fluoride in the water, doesn't have fluoride toothpaste, and then a middle town that has fluoride toothpaste but still no fluoride in the water, and then a third town that has fluoride toothpaste and fluoride in the water. Are you going to see a significant difference between the second and the third town? Obviously, the first town is going to be some medieval rotten teeth era, but would there be a marginal difference attributable to adding fluoride to the water in the 21st century? Does it really help to still have fluoride in the water? And I don't know that. Jade brings up in the side chat the point about vitamin D in milk and about iodine in salt. These things have all been demonstrated to be beneficial in an era, but now where we all have multiple sources of iodine and vitamin D, like there's a reason why we're still enriching and fortifying these foods. I don't know. But
Actually, people have been getting gout because table salt is available in non-iodized versions, and they've been using it, and they've been contracting gout.
Okay, well,
we're not talking about the person anymore. We are talking about stuff. We're going away from the person. You talk about the baby, which is a person which has the freedom that you take from him.
No, they don't. They don't.
I'd like to answer.
You don't take.
I'd like to answer Brenda's question first, because I would also want to make where I think that's not a fair comparison, is that there isn't data to support this idea that that there's more penile injury or illnesses or any morbidity associated with people still having foreskins. That is, when you look at the marginal difference, I mean, if you're not cleaning your genitals well enough, you're going to have some problems on occasion. The presence of a foreskin doesn't really make a difference.
True. Yeah. And I want to go back to the fact that if you change the law and make it you cannot cut the foreskin of a baby, and the child will have to choose by himself if he wants to be circumcised or not. This is what the discussion is about. I mean, I heard Hagtai and Jackie talking about those points, and both of them agree that once the person is old enough, he should be able to choose if he wants to be circumcised or not. But as a baby, you shouldn't impose that on the baby. So
parents have the right to impose that on the baby.
Why?
Because they're parents.
I mean, could they cut their ears?
Because that's what Hockey pointed out, it's kind of medically neutral. It really, I believe it is kind of medically neutral. There's minor things either way, but for the most part, all I've heard and hear most people have been saying that they think it's kind of medically speaking, neither here nor there. So there has to be some other reasons as well. I think we need to look into it, but why having it. And obviously, parents think
not just minor. it's not just minor; it's also largely unsubstantiated. Right.
Either way,
So,
you mean?
yeah. So right, exactly. Either way. So and yeah, and to the extent that it's the proposed problem or benefit is more significant, there's less evidence, generally speaking. So it's just, but yeah, I mean, certainly neutral overall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
found
want to
I
ask Jay a
found
question
I found a
really
paper.
quick.
Steve, what would you say? Hey, I found a paper that says 117 newborns die each year, directly or indirectly, from circumcision. 117 children a year die because of circumcision.
I
I
found
still think it's necessary.
If you could you share that paper? I'll tell you what. One of the first things that makes me suspicious about that, or your retelling of it, is when you give a figure per year. It's a big planet. Is that in your state? Is that in your whole country? Is that the planet?
Yeah.
So if you could share the actual paper, we can take a look at it. And I'm not totally.
I hate to say it, but
I mean,
if
the thing
it's
is, any time
worldwide,
that you
that's
perform any
statistically
procedure,
insignificant. I know it sounds cruel, but if that's worldwide, that's kind of statistically insignificant, wouldn't it be?
Well, yeah, this is just the first article I found. I'm gonna
If you
keep
could
looking.
prevent one death, if you could prevent one death, if there is in the whole world there was one death, one people who died,
Nah, I don't
and
think
you
that's a
could
good
have
argument
prevented.
because again, you're taking away parents' right because of the possibility of an infection, which we all know can happen. But again, it goes back to the okay, which is there more benefit? Okay, if you say okay, there's 100, let's use that number or something close to it. This is 180 babies worldwide. But if you don't do it, then the 180 people die of penile cancer or urinary tract infection. You kind of can balance it out, something like that. Could you not? So I'm kind of skeptical when I hear
the
numbers just
risk,
being thrown out like that as well.
the risk
Just a quick
the
comment.
complication.
If that number is from U.S. Births, it's approximately 1.5 per 100,000.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve.
That's
Hold on, Steve. I want to ask a question here. Steve, how many people die every year from getting hit by a bus?
Probably quite a few.
Okay, get rid of buses. Get rid of buses.
Well, no.
Well, more germane.
No,
more
again,
germane.
I don't think that's even remotely the same thing. Again, if you say that
No.
if you say 108 people die with it annually for the U.S. whatever it is because they get this operation, well, somebody will probably find a number that 108 people died because they didn't get it.
Well, according to the CDC, there were 1,244 cases of people hospitalized, 416 cases of people reporting disability, 122 reported deaths, and 388 reported life-threatening cases due to vaccination.
Vaccination.
Well, yeah, but that
It is
what is it?
vaccination. It is a
but again,
statistical certainty.
and I agree with I agree.
It's a
There's problems there, but
Yeah.
again, the parents. Okay,
It's
but hang on. There's a difference, and I don't think it's a fair comparison because vaccinations deal with society as a whole. When you don't have your child vaccinated, you can have problems because of society. You can have clusters of diseases popping up again. You can have
Measles.
Well, the suggestion is having as public
but it
policy
affects
that
other people.
we.
But vaccinations affect other people. Circumcision, I'm sorry, you're not going to be affecting anybody else really. Maybe your sexual partner most. But
Well, this isn't even talking about herd immunity,
herd immunity,
herd
yeah.
immunity problems. It's 122 deaths from 2014 to 2015 due to vaccination. This is going to happen. It's been well known since vaccinations were started that a certain percentage, a very small people,
I don't get it because
because it's
I'm sorry,
valid.
but I'm sorry, Brenda. That's
The reason why.
no,
because
no,
as
it's not
public
because
policy.
Brenda. I'm sorry, but that's an extremely unfair comparison
I think
because
so as
we
well.
have extremely conclusive data to support the benefits of vaccination, as opposed to, let's be honest here, not terribly conclusive data on the benefits of circumcision.
And the
right? So
detrimental
it
effects
is
as well.
not
It's pretty weak either way.
So reduction in STDs and in cancer, that's not and UTIs. That's
the
not
data for that is not as strong as you might.
It's
the Mayo Clinic seems to differ with you.
No, I read the Mayo Clinic. They don't. They actually
Yeah.
they don't make a very strong case. They're just saying, for example, it even says like here, circumcised
Right.
men might have a lower risk of sexually transmitted disease.
Have you read
it's-
Have you read the source material for that?
No, but I'm sure it's pretty
The
light.
things that Mayo
I'm
Clinic is
pretty sure-
referencing?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not that convincing. Let's be realistic here.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
mean,
I'm
there's enough data that I could understand possibly making the recommendation. Maybe. I can understand why they might make that recommendation. Let me say it that way.
My point was that as public policy, not as a medical issue, but as public policy, we institute programs that we know for a fact will result in the deaths of some people.
I don't see your argument.
Nevertheless,
Brenda. I really don't. I don't
As
see.
opposed
Well,
to
I just did.
people from disease.
Vaccination is public policy.
Right, but
and we know
Christopher
for a
points out,
fact
the
that a
benefits far
certain
outweigh
number
the
of
risk.
certain number of children will die as a result of vaccination. We know
still
that.
don't see your argument.
Nevertheless, it's public policy.
Because it is
valid.
beneficial to society
Because it's beneficial
of herd
to society as a whole. Yes.
So
Yeah, that can't be left as a lingering question. I mean, if you say, well, if you actually phrase it as a genuine question, like why do we then vaccinate even infants, knowing that some number of them are going to suffer morbidity or even mortality as a result of vaccination? Well, there's an answer to that question, right? The wealth of data that shows you say
that's another discussion.
Tens of thousands. I know, but it is
Yes.
it is related to this because the issue is when you're weighing these ethical things, you can't approach an ethical situation by saying, well, X, we know that X causes some people to die, therefore we got to get rid of X. Hence, it was Pseudo's point about, well, how many people die on buses? There's a reason for buses. I mean, there's a reason why speed limits are set to something that's high enough that some number of people get killed every year, but we can all still engage in commerce, right? I mean, every social policy decision has that flavor of, okay, well, how many people are going to die when we do this? Well, is that few enough? Yeah, okay, then let's do it. So that's understood that some people are going to die from these things. When it comes to the circumcision, there's no there are just no significant benefits to circumcision. You can say, well, there is a study here that says it reduces the risk of some little thing here, but it's a trivial amount of risk with data that isn't even, the risk reduction is incredibly small. And even if it exists, the data from a lot of those sources just, it's kind of sketchy. I think that really the best interpretation is medically neutral, whereas vaccination is clearly not medically neutral.
That's exactly what I'm saying. There's clearly it's not neutral for vaccinations, Brenda.
I'm not advocating that circumcision should be forced on all children.
Nobody said
that was not my argument.
We had nobody arguing about that either. Nobody's saying that.
But they were arguing that we should deny parents the right to circumcise their children.
That to me is the heart of the question.
There's a reasonable argument.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a reasonable argument to be made in that. And as I said, if you somehow got rid of this idea of ethical inertia and you just said somebody just came up with this idea today, that, well, you know what we should start doing is we should start removing the foreskins off. Well, why would you do that? Well, let's take a look at the data and see if it's good or it's bad. And the data say, well, it's pretty neutral. So why would you do that? Why are you now cutting into flesh and removing things in an infant that can't contribute to the decision? It's not like getting a tattoo or an ear disc or something. It would really come across as parents saying, well, I just want to cut off my kid's earlobes. Except it would be weirder because you're like, oh, I want to cut off this portion of my kid's penis. That's what it would sound like were there not existing
and that might be
ethical
true.
inertia.
That very much might be true. And like you said, though, if we started over on another colony on another planet, it might be a procedure that just, is 100, 200, 340 years from now is completely unheard of,
So there is a solution to it, and I can tell you what they're doing, like how the medical field is changing ethics in this regard. But before I do that, I actually want to bring up, I want to hear more of the discussion, but I do want to bring up one important exception. I'm sure somebody must have mentioned it in 90 minutes of discussion already. There is one exception that I consider to be absolutely heinous and completely, this has just got to be banned, and that is the practice of the moils that, they're not physicians, they're not trained in surgery.
Yes.
And
Sucking
the whole
blood.
I mean, if you're sucking the blood, if you're going to do any sort of an operation on an infant, it has to be done in proper conditions.
Absolutely.
If you're
I
22 years old,
definitely agree with you on that.
you want to get your ears pierced, that's your choice, but the penis sucking thing's got to go.
I do agree with you yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I figured somebody would eventually. It hadn't got brought up yet. It did get brought up. I think I got it brought up in the live feed, but we didn't bring it up in here yet. But that's something that should have been brought up probably earlier. But yeah, I do agree with Hogtie on that. But anyways, we are going to be wrapping this up a little bit. I just wanted to have this lively discussion on. I think obviously we found out that in our community we have very diverse opinions on topics such as this. Understandably so, because there's a lot of people in the community. If there's other topics that you think are worthy of having a discussion with, and kind of say, okay, well, what do we think about this particular topic? Let me know so we can come up with maybe something every Sunday to have a topic that people can kind of weigh in about. I don't think anybody switched their positions of this particular one. Did anybody kind of like? By the way, Sokka, do you want to weigh in? I know you dropped in, and I don't want to ignore you, but don't go on forever. Like, but do you want to weigh in real quick before I go off, Sokka?
Sure. I mean, yeah, the first off, the whole well, why can't a Moyle do it? I mean, if the argument is that we're going to keep it around for cultural reasons, then the cultural reason is that you're going to have a rabbi bite it off. Like,
because it has to be for
I don't think that you can mean.
Yeah, I don't think that's really. It makes sense to me. That it has to be for medical.
Well, it might not make sense, but if your argument is that.
All right, okay, thank you, Sokka. We get your idea.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sokka, your son's making a valid argument here.
Yeah, that's so loud.
Sorry, I'm changing a diaper while doing this. Okay, you go.
Right.
You go play. All right. Anyway, but.
Yeah,
but the thing is, like, so if your argument is that it's for cultural reasons, then then why would we put restrictions on it by who can do it?
Because culture still
it's
has
cultural.
to be within under medical things. I mean, there's nothing. I don't find it to be even sanitary for that to even happen.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up just the point that I brought up the whole thing about the Jews and blood sucking the dick earlier, and I actually put in a story
Can you say
in
penis,
the side
because
chat.
we're trying to keep this 18. I don't want to make it age restricted.
Yeah. My mistake. I was just pointing out that in that instance during that ritual, they sort of contracted. There were instances of them contracting herpes. So I think, I mean, if you want to argue culture,
Well, I'm saying it's unsanitary though to what the Moyle does.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
of course it is.
Better,
human mouth is just a cesspool.
It'd be better off. You'd be better off trying to get it from a medical professional, not by some rabbi who's doing it for Yahweh.
Well, I don't have a problem with rabbis doing it. Let me clarify that, because I don't have. I was the one who brought up the Moyle thing, and I said I'm kind of concerned about it because they're not necessarily medically trained. Now they don't necessarily have to be, as long as they're trained in that specific procedure, and with dealing with things that might arise during the course of performing the circumcision, or the bris as they call it. So I'm not that ramped up about it, but this is an important distinction I want to make. I mean, I would also, on one hand, also look at the procedure of dunking infants, or sprinkling water on their forehead, or putting ash in the shape of a cross in their forehead, and all these other things. I think that stuff's just plain goofy, and I would like to see that stuff go away too. But if asked, well, is this something that in the empire of Hogtie land, if I became the emperor, like, would I want to get rid of those things and just make them illegal? And the answer is no, because I do think we still have to allow cultures to exercise their goofy religious practices as they see fit, because it's their right to do it. All I'm saying is it has to be done within reasonable bounds, so that if there was, if there were religious people who said, oh, well, we take our babies and we sprinkle water on their faces, I go, well, that's stupid, but okay, no harm done, go nuts. But if you have a culture that comes along and says, well, we cut the toes off our babies, no, I'm sorry, that's not happening in this country. And the doing a circumcision in the conditions that some of these babies have been done, and this is not the case for all Jewish babies, by the way. I'm sure lots of Moyles do this properly, but clearly there just isn't enough oversight into how Moyles are doing it, given that these things are happening. So if they're going to do it, that's fine. Oh, now you're talking about cutting into flesh, which is normally reserved practice for physicians, protected practice. But okay, we're going to let you do it, but then we're going to make sure that you're doing it in a way that is ethically appropriate for dealing with an infant.
Yeah, I agree. And
the last. Oh, sorry. I had one more point, Steve, that I wanted to bring up.
Go ahead. Make it.
Okay. Yeah. Now, for the people that argue for things like, oh, it's cultural, but also like there's for cosmetic reasons that people do it. Well, what's to stop us from doing any type of cosmetic things? What about once we get to the stage where like growth hormones, or any type of like things that we can do to, modify our children for cosmetic reasons? You want them to be taller later than life, so therefore you should be allowed to administer whatever type of thing
again, that's
like.
a slippery slope type thing.
Well, it is a slippery slope, but I mean, the arguments we try to argue from a position of cultural here, but there's really no cultural reason. It's not being done for religious reasons, mainly in the States. There's nothing that's really tying people to this. The reason why people do it within the States still is for things like cosmetic reasons.
Yeah,
and if we're going to be basing this off, if we're going to be basing this off of cosmetic.
Sokka, hang on. We brought that up earlier, and I don't want to kind of rehash it. You can go back and listen to the beginning of that because you came in late. I am at the 2-hour mark, and I am going to end this right exactly at 2 hours. I think Hawkeye may have given us the topic for the next week, though. Baby baptisms, or actually baptism in general. Does the Bible teach whether they're sprinkle or immersion? Or most people probably don't even care one way or another. But I don't know. That's kind of been a big topic in the in the Christian community at least. Should babies be baptized? And is it theologically sound? I don't know. That might be a decent topic. But anyways, I wanted to appreciate everybody joining this particular hangout. We had like 70 people watching. I might have another one in a few hours later on today if nothing else is going on, but I wanted to keep this short because people did want to watch it later on, so at least they've kind of got a idea of what we discussed. If people want to add to this later on, message me. We can start a little thread in the Great Debate community on it and continue from there. But I wanted to appreciate everybody who came in and talked about it, and with that, I'm going to end this particular hangout. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.